I just wish the CPL starts pushing more so we can grow more Canadian players that can support us going on. 2026 is just around the corner, but we still need more Canadians to come around and be better. If everybody's professional, we can have better teams in the future. That's what I hope.
But the development levels, I'm looking at some of these CPL players, and years ago, they would have been in the national team.
Two of Canada's most respected soccer voices, Hall of Famer Craig Forrest and assistant captain Stefan Eustachiou, both say the Canadian Premier League, that is, the CPL, is critical to Canada's future growth and success. Hardcore Canadian fans know the CPL intimately, but the average Canadian sports fan knows teams like Manchester City, Bayern Munich, Juventus, and all the Canadian MLS teams, but they don't know the Canadian Premier League, and many couldn't name even one team in the CPL. Why? And where is the media coverage for the CPL? But before we get into that, as background, I'm going to talk about soccer football pyramids. The Canadian pyramid, the US pyramid, and how the rest of the world does pyramids. If you want to get straight to the reasons TSN and Sportsnet have ignored the CPL, feel free to skip ahead to part 3, the media ownership section. Otherwise, pyramids. Besides the USA and Canada, every other country in the world has a pyramid system. For example, in England, the Premier League is the highest level, with teams like Liverpool and Manchester United. But below that are other professional tiers or levels, the Championship, League One, etc., etc. But here's the thing. Teams in the pyramid can move up or down a level depending on how well they do in the season. For example, Canadian Ryan Reynolds bought the club Wrexham with Rob McElhenney in 2021. They were in the National League, the 5th level of English football. 2 years later, Wrexham finished first in the season and were promoted, up one level to League Two. The next season, Wrexham finished second and again were promoted, this time to League One. If, and this is a big if, Wrexham continued to finish at the top of their level, they would get promoted to the Premier League with Chelsea, Man City, and all the big guys. There has been grassroots, that is, recreational and non-professional soccer in Canada and the US for a very long time, but professional leagues have teetered on the brink of survival. In the late 1960s, a group of entrepreneurs formed the North American Soccer League, the NASL. It was a professional league. The goal of this league was basically to make money, and to do this, they brought in some of the best players in the world, like Pele and Franz Beckenbauer. The goal was not to develop US players, and there were more Canadians in this league than Americans. By the way, Canada was way better than the US at that time. Fact. The NASL folded in the 1980s. Later, the US wanted to host the 1994 World Cup. But to do this, there was a requirement to have a domestic league, that is, an American league. So in 1993, Major League Soccer, the MLS, was born. Another goal of this league was to develop US players, and for a long time, the rules said Canadian players were considered foreign and thus restricted from playing as much as Americans. Also, the league had some DNA from the old NASL and was struggling to survive financially, so there was not a built-in promotion relegation pyramid system like the rest of the world. I have seen lots of people struggle to describe the US soccer pyramid, but that's almost impossible because it's not really a pyramid. I would call it a train. Because if your team is in one car, say the second-class car, you can move to the front of that car, but you can't move up to the first-class car by winning. You move up a league by paying more money and negotiating with the powers that be. That is, you buy another ticket. This is in sharp contrast to the free-flowing real pyramid system in the rest of the world. In the US system, MLS is in Tier 1, the first-class car. It would be nice if the next cars were USL, that is, United Soccer League Championship, USL League 1, USL League 2. But there is also MLS Next Pro and, until recently, NASL and others. It's a bit confusing. In 2023, the USL voted to have promotion relegation in their 3 tiers, but the vote did not pass. So, what's with Canada? Besides the recreational leagues, Canadian professional and semi-professional teams piggybacked on the US train. The Whitecaps, TFC, and CF Montreal are currently in the MLS, the first car of the US train. But over their history, these teams have been in the different cars. There were other Canadian teams like Ottawa Fury and currently FC Manitoba and the Thunder Bay Chill. Last year, the Chill won their league, but of course, they didn't get promoted to League One because there's no promotion relegation. Again, the rest of the world thinks this is crazy. The Canadian system has evolved over the years with many leagues coming and going and changing names. There has always been a very strong youth and amateur system in Canada, but professional and semi-professional leagues have not survived. Leagues like the American NASL came and went. In the vacuum, and after qualifying for the 1986 World Cup, with no professional team in Canada, by the way, the Canadian Soccer League was formed, the CSL. It was a fully professional league. TSN even broadcast 1 match every week. Unfortunately, after 5 years, it folded. In Canada, it was well known that the US system was, of course, fully controlled by the United States and designed to develop American players. In the 2010s, Canada decided to make a break, stop hitchhiking on the US train, and upgrade its own soccer pyramid, or more like soccer train. In the semi-professional Pro-Am world, Quebec formed a league in 2012. In these Pro-Am leagues, players are not paid, but expenses like travel and hotels are. Then League One Ontario was formed, and then BC reorganized and rebranded to form League One BC. Soccer Canada formed League One Canada as an umbrella organization to coordinate the provincial leagues. Last year, League One Alberta was formed, and in 2025, League One Prairies will form with Saskatchewan and Manitoba. With the new League One forming, teams that were in the US system like Calgary Foothills, Victoria Highlanders, and Vancouver's TSS Rovers switched to the Canadian League One system. Similar to the United States starting the MLS to develop and benefit American players, in 2019, Canada started the CPL, the Canadian Premier League, to develop and benefit Canadian players and fans. It is a fully professional league, and it completes the Canadian soccer system. The Canadian Premier League currently has 8 teams: Pacific in Victoria, Vancouver FC, Cavalry in Calgary, Valor in Winnipeg, Forge in Hamilton, York, Atletico Ottawa, owned by famous parent club Atletico Madrid, and the Halifax Wanderers. There are great rivalries forming, and these teams compete for the league season championship and playoff championship. These winners go on to play in an international championship with the best teams in Mexico, the USA, and the rest of our region. One last thing, from what I have heard, Canada Soccer is open to promotion relegation within these tiers if there are enough teams. So say if one day there are 40 CPL teams, there could be 2 divisions with 20 teams and promotion relegation between them.